Today I'm going to show you how to make this decorative sunburst mirror. It's got this sort of antique gold effect. And it's really easy to make. I think looks quite effective. So the main sort of surround for the mirror, I've just used cereal packet card. And then for the actual mirror, you can either find one that's about 20mm to an inch in diameter, maybe you've got one in an old compact or makeup set, or you can use this sort of mirrored sheet, which is what I've done. Now it's quite difficult to cut, but I've used these mitre cutters, and these are available from most sort of craft tool places. I think I just got mine on eBay just by searching for handheld mitre cutters. So do have a look for some of those because they're really useful for lots of miniature work. A compass just to draw your circle for your mirror if you're going to be using the sheet, compass and pencil. Some small scissors for shaping the card that we've used around the outside. A scribe, which is just a tool with a nice pointed end, and we use that to sort of score the shape of the mirror into the perspex before we cut it. And then to edge the mirror, I just used this black 1mm fine rope, it's called. And this is from Little Trimmings, and I'll pop a link below to that website. And it comes in all sorts of colours. If you wanted to do a gold mirror, you could just buy the gold braid. That's that. And then I've used two paints for this effect, a gold as a base coat, and that's a Rustin's gold paint there, and then I used a matte black, just an emulsion over the top, but you could just use the gold. We'll talk about that as we go along. And then to finish, I've used a clear varnish in a satin finish over the top, and then you'll need some glue, and again I've used my old Gorilla wood glue for the entire project. And I've just used some cocktail sticks for applying the glue and removing the glue residue at the end as well. I think that's everything you'll need, so let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start by cutting the mirror, and I'm going to use this mirrored perspex sheet. It's got a white backing. It's quite thick. It's probably a 1.5 mm thick, so about 1/16 of an inch. Now, I searched everywhere for a small makeup mirror, but I couldn't find one. But perhaps you've got like an old compact or some eyeshadow that's got a little mirror in it, and you want it to be about 20 to 25 millimeters. So, what's that? 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch. Of course, you can go bigger if you want to, but to keep within the scale, probably about 1 inch. Would be about the biggest I'd go. Okay, so I've got an offcut of the mirrored sheet here that I'm going to cut my circle from. And this is actually quite hard to cut, and I couldn't cut a circle with my craft knife, so I had a practice with these mitre cutters. And though you don't get a perfectly straight edge around the circle, that doesn't matter because we're going to be covering the edge of the mirror with our rope braid. So it doesn't need to be a perfect circle. So I'm going to make my mirror 25 millimeters. So I've got a compass here. So always set it to half the sort of width that you want. So 12.5 millimeters. Or 1/2 inch, and just get that in the centre there. Oops. And draw around it. And just to keep the mitre cutter blade on track, I'm just going to score that circle into the perspex with this scribe. And that's just a tool with a sharp point on the end. And I just want to go over the pencil line just very lightly. Like that. And then just sort of begin at a corner with the cutters. And we're just going to snip in sort of small sections around that scored circle. I am applying quite a bit of pressure. But this, like I say, was just easier than using the craft knife. It was just taking an absolute age to cut through the mirrored sheet. Pieces are flying everywhere. So just go around tiny little bits at a time, and that will help you get the best shape that you can. Close those. And there, so not a perfect circle like I say, but we will be hiding that edge. Okay, let's put that to one side for now. Okay, so now I want to make a backing for the mirror. So just normal cereal packet card, and I've used my compass again to cut a disc that is 10mm wider than the mirror at either side. So that's about roughly 3/8 of an inch. And then in the centre I've drawn a circle just slightly wider than my mirror. So don't draw around the mirror because we know that hasn't got a straight edge, but you just want the mirror to fit into that circle with just a little bit of a border around the edge. And that's so that when we glue on the decorations, the mirror will still sort of fit nicely back inside of them. Okay, so put that there, and then again from cereal packet I've cut several strips that are 5mm or just under 1/4 of an inch thick, and from those I cut several pieces that are 25mm long, so the same diameter as your mirror. And then I've trimmed the end of each, not into a point. I tried it with a point and it didn't look quite right, it looked too spiky. So I've got a spare one here and I'll just show you. I just used some smaller scissors and I just snipped off each corner like that, and then I just rounded off those sort of central corners like that. And it doesn't make a big difference, but when I just did an exact point, it was too sharp, like I say, so I rounded them off. But however you want to do your mirror, that's up to you. So if you wanted sort of points, or you might just want to leave them square, it's completely up to you. And then I've just got some glue here that I've dispensed onto a piece of card. I'm using a cocktail stick to apply it around the outside of that circle. Don't worry if you go over the line. Like that, and then just going to stick all of these pieces so that they're just touching that pencil line, but not going inside of it, as the mirror won't fit back into place. Just move over a little bit there so you can see me better. And then just get it as close as you can. Like that, so you're not leaving sort of too much of a gap between them. And just work your way round. And the final one there. And I assure you that was pure luck when choosing the size, that they all fitted around the edge like that. But what you can do is when you've cut your pieces, just dry fit them round in a circle to see how many you need. And if you're doing a larger mirror, you might want them to be slightly thicker, or if you want to go smaller, make them a bit thinner, just so that it all looks in scale. And then before your glue is all completely dried there, just try your mirror in the centre there. And I've got a little bit too much room around that edge, so just push all your strips inwards a little bit. And you've probably got a few minutes before your glue is completely dry. I can feel it beginning to sort of go tacky here. There, so I've probably got about less than a millimetre around the edge of the mirror there. And my cord's about that thick, so that's fine. Put the mirror to one side again. And then I've now cut some strips at 20 millimetres, or sort of 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to trim these again into a point. And then I want to put these as the second layer in between the first there. Okay, so I've trimmed all of those into the rounded point. Just tidy that one up. And then you just want to apply glue again around the bottom of the pieces that you've already fixed in place. And then just the same thing again. And this time positioning them so that they're in between the longer ones. Okay, so there's the second layer complete. And then for the third and final layer, I've cut my strips to 15 millimetres long. So I'm just going in sort of 5 millimetre graduations there, and that's 5/8 of an inch. And these ones again, I'm going to overlap in the centre of the previous round. Okay, so there's my third and final round. Now I don't know if the strip that I cut these from was slightly thicker, but I didn't sort of get round quite as evenly as I had done before, so I made one of the strips just very slightly narrower, and there's a little tiny bit of overlap in here and there, but as long as you sort of press it all down so it's as flat as possible, then you'll be okay. But just bear that in mind when you're cutting your strips, they have to be exactly the same width, as you'll end up with the problem I've had. But overall I think that looks really good, and once the paint's on it, you're not going to see any sort of unevenness around here. So leave that all to dry completely. You can just double check that your mirror still fits nicely in the centre there, which it does, so that's good. Put that to one side, and then once that's dry, we'll start the paint. Okay, so for my mirror I want the black to be the predominant colour so that it matches the fireplace in my living room. So I'm going to do a gold undercoat and black over the top, but you might want the gold to be the dominant colour. By putting black underneath, you'll create more of a sort of antique gold effect, but if you want a nice sort of bright gold, then just use your gold paint. And then what I've done here, just to make it easier to paint, I've just stuck a couple of pieces of masking tape onto an old piece of card that I use for painting, this way up, and then I'm just going to secure the very edges of the mirror to it. Don't press down too hard, but it's just to hold it in place while you paint. And do remember to get around the very edges of the cardboard as well. They'll probably be visible when it's in place in your room. And any sort of gold paint, you'll need to really shake up the tin before you use it, because all the colour will actually sit at the bottom as a sediment. So give it a good shake and a stir as well, if you've got a stirring stick there. And I've just dispensed a little bit here into the lid of the pot. I'm just using quite a sort of soft, larger brush to put that on with. I just want to sort of dab it on. I want to make sure that I get into all of these sort of nooks and crannies. And by dabbing it on rather than painting it on, you're creating a bit of texture as well. So once you've applied that first coat, just before the paint begins to dry, just pop it away from the card, and it's already left the tape because of the wet paint, and then just very carefully stand it somewhere to dry. And I keep a lot of these sort of plastic pots that I use for standing things in, and then it's not going to stick to the side, so don't leave it on the card, as the cardboard will sort of tear away from the back and will weaken it. So we can now leave that to dry completely, and if you're going to be doing the black overcoat, we'll do that next. Okay, so this has now been drying for a couple of hours, and that's now nice and solid. And I'm now going to put it back onto the card. I've got some fresh tape here. I'm going to stick that lightly back on there. And then here I've got a ceramic tile, and I've just dispensed some matte black emulsion paint onto there, and I'm going to apply it to the mirror with a brush, and I just want to pick up the tiniest amount of black, and I'm going to dot most of it off. I'm just going to test it in that middle panel, and I just really want to go really lightly over the gold, and just each time just picking up a tiny bit of paint. And it's always best to apply a little at a time, because you can put more on but you can't take it off. And I'm pressing as well sort of at an angle behind the card to get to those edges. Okay, so I'll just show you. That is now a couple of sort of thin coats, and then I've just got here some upholstery foam, and I've torn a small piece off of there, and just while the paint's still wet, I just want to brush from the sort of inside to outside edge, and it's just taking off the tiniest bit of black paint, but it's sort of revealing a little bit more of the gold underneath. I want it to have this sort of brushed effect. I'm just going to go around until I'm really happy with the look. Brush around as well to get different effects. Yeah, so I'm going to leave it there now before I overwork it. And this emulsion paint dries very quickly, so I'm going to just carefully now remove that from the tape. It's already almost dry. Stick into the tape. So that's almost dry now, but I'm just going to leave it for a few moments more. And then I'm going to apply a coat of clear varnish to really make that gold stand out. Okay, so I've got the mirror surround attached back on the painting sheet, and I'm going to apply a coat of clear varnish, and I'm using this Rustin's Quick Dry varnish, and it's a satin varnish. Now when you're using a clear varnish, it's always a good idea just to dispense a little bit into a pot, otherwise if you keep dipping the brush back in, you'll contaminate the varnish and it will go all misty. So I'm just going to, that's what I dispense my varnish with, an old spoon. I'm just going to apply a light coat because I don't want to make the card too wet. It's beginning to get dark outside, so I feel like I'm sitting in my own light, but I hope you can see what I'm doing there. And even as I'm sort of painting that on, I can see the gold becoming more prominent, which is what I wanted. Okay, so that's one coat, and then I just wanted to show you, as I was going around, I sort of did the brush that way, and it just seems to take off a little bit of the black paint and gives it a really nice effect here, making it look sort of like real metal. So I'm going to go in this direction all the way round. And again, I don't know if you can really see that what's attached to the card, but I'll take it off in a minute and I'll show you what I mean. Just very gently lift that off. See if you can see that, especially around the sort of mirror area there. It's taken off the black, and that sort of gold coming through looks really metallic there, which I really like. So I'm going to leave that to dry, and that, as it says on the tin, that's touch dry in 30 minutes. And then I'll attach the mirror and the rope cord, and then we're done. Okay, so the varnish is now completely dry, so I'm going to attach the mirror. I'm just going to apply a bit of glue in the middle there. And check that the mirror fits in nice and snugly before you apply the glue, which I've already done. And I just had to snip a little bit more off the edge, and that's probably where the paint has made the hole just slightly smaller. So just check that it fits before you apply the glue. I found as well that it went in better one way. Like that. And press that into place. And I'm just using the normal wood glue to put this into place. That seems to work fine. And leave there's a sort of film over the top of the mirror, which I've left in place all whilst I was cutting and everything, and that just protects the mirror then. I'm now going to peel that off. Like that. And then I've already cut my rope to size, just to fit around the outside of the mirror, so between the mirror and the cardboard, so that you're covering that sort of uneven line around there. So just use a cocktail stick and just very carefully apply a line of glue around that join. Okay, and then you just want to lay the braid around there. Covering the edge of the mirror and the edge of the cardboard. Oops, got caught there. I cut my braid just a little bit too long, so I'm just making sure it's in the right place. and just snip that end off. Squeeze that join together so you can't see it there. And I'm just going to get a clean cocktail stick and remove the glue from around the outside. And just carefully pick that off. It should dry clear anyway. Just want to remove the main bit of glue. Let's pop that down. I want to remove it from around the outside of the mirror as well. So I'm just very, very carefully just scraping it from the outside there. Okay, and there is the completed mirror. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and if so, please subscribe to the channel, there's lots more to come. And please do check out my new book, just released a couple of days ago, which includes over 50 miniature projects, and I'll pop a link below to where that's available on Amazon. But for now, thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon.